And welcome to another episode of Nights at the Round Table. It's your boy, man, Wheezy. And we got the crew back again. To my left, we got Bo B.
Hi, guys.
She's back.
Surprise.
My immediate left, we got my queen, Angela Johnson Reyes. And Be Real to the right. We're in here.
We're doing it.
Look, we're fresh faced because it's freaking 8, 9 in the morning. And
Manny's been up for 6 hours.
I've been up. Not
burned
even a
3,000
joke.
calories.
It's not even a joke. I've been up since 2:47. But we're feeling good. I feel good. How about you guys?
Great.
Feel great. I'm happy to have Elise back for this
And
episode.
we have Bonzo down here, too.
And we have Bonzo in the chair.
Just in case he wants to say something.
It's always a great time when we bring Elise back on. Fresh perspective, an Aussie accent. It's just
I was waiting for it.
I like it a lot. And the listeners like it too because
Hi,
people miss you.
listeners.
Yeah.
I like being back here. This feels good, you guys. Feels good. Hi, everyone.
In our brand new studio.
Yeah, I love it. Looks good.
It
I
is
love
our-
what you've done with the place.
It is our brand new dining room. So it's a little something.
Yeah.
You know?
I see the oval table.
We've been breaking the ice with this game called
I was
Wordiful.
wondering what that is.
It's an awesome
Are
game
we
that
sponsored?
Ange's friend.
Yeah, my friend Liz came up with this game.
It's
And-
so good though.
Wordiful.
I mean, she came up. If you go on Instagram and look up Wordiful, it's she just, which I have a story coming out soon on her Wordiful page. You talk about like a word that means something to you, and you share a story for that. And it's just a really inspiring page that she started, and then she turned it into affirmation cards, and now this game, and like she's growing it and it's just so powerful and amazing. So we've been playing this game and. We've had
It's
incredible
really good
conversations
questions.
with
We
it.
first started playing it when we were out to dinner with Maddie and B, and it was like a fire conversation.
Yeah.
And then just in our Mangelas, we did a couple, and they're freaking really good questions.
So they're not like, they like go deep real quick type
Yeah,
things.
no room
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
small
no
talk.
room for small talk.
And I'm
which
guessing that's the, okay, yeah, love it.
if
I
you
love
were
this
there at
game.
dinner, you would realize that me and B do not like that kind of small talk. So here's the first one.
Turn off for me.
Yeah, it's for sure a turn off. The first one is, what makes you feel grateful for the way you were raised?
Ooh, that's a good one. Shoot.
What makes you feel grateful for, and everybody at home, you need to answer these two. What makes you feel grateful for the way you were raised?
The first thing that pops into my mind is finances. We came from humble beginnings. So I learned how to not be extravagant, but make do with what you have and celebrate that and enjoy that. Now, granted, at the same time, like I would see like my aunt who had a lot of money. So her daughters, my cousins, they had everything they wanted. They had the new phone. I don't know if you guys remember that one phone that was clear and you could see all the colorful wires through it. Do you remember that
yeah.
phone? And
Like
it's
an
a
actual landline, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I
I
remember
thought
they
you
would
were
get
talking
the
about my
new phone. No,
Yep.
this is girls.
No, way back
80s,
in the day.
90s.
No, I got you. No, Razor flip phone. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Ooh, the
and
razor.
they had like all the cool things. And so of course we always wanted that, but we never felt like we didn't have. Whatever little we had, we felt like we had it. And we could participate in the activities. We could join cheerleading. We could do all the things. And so I think I'm very grateful for growing up with humble beginnings.
Yeah.
I like that.
good.
It's cool that you had the comparison too, and you knew that. I think I would say, part of me wants to just like say Australia, just because like I love Australia so much, and it's where I grew up, and it formed so much of my outlook and everything. But I think I would say like that, obviously as a whole, I think everyone's grateful for their culture, hopefully. But for me, I think I am grateful that I grew up with my parents being pastors. I think it gave me a whole different worldview that I wouldn't, like, good Lord, who would Elise be without even growing up with that? Like, probably a little rascal. Like, still, even worse than
Definitely a rascal.
Okay, well, that's the Australian. Oh my God, are you Australian? What the?
I've been there
Are
two
we,
times.
we're so grateful for our culture in Australia for growing up. But I think like that, the way like I grew up in church, and even just what it showed me about community and about like foundational beliefs. Yes, has it come with a bunch of other stuff as I've grown up? Absolutely. But I think that like early days, I am grateful of growing up in that, because it did form so much of my faith and beliefs, and just like strong foundations in community as well, strong roots in community and relationships. So I'd say that.
Yeah.
Love
I
that
would
for
say being a military dude, like my, I was able to like learn how to make friends. Excuse me.
Oh,
It's the morning.
Really?
It's the morning, you guys.
It's a 4 a.m. protein
I'm
shake.
sorry. I was able to learn how to make friends. So it's like we traveled so much and moved so much that like I don't really get affected, which is probably why I don't get affected in situations. Remember we were talking about this in the last one where I'm like, I keep a steady whatever, like no matter what situation I'm in.
Yeah.
Because that's like military style. Like it doesn't, we travel everywhere, but no matter where you go, it's boom, boom.
Oh my gosh,
boom,
this
boom,
is making so much sense right now because you are also really good with change.
Yeah.
And letting go and throwing things away. Like you always try to throw away things through the house. I remember when we first moved back into this house, Manny was like going through boxes and stuff. And granted, I had COVID, so I had to stay quarantined in the room. So when I come out of quarantine, Manny's like, okay, like I put a pile of stuff that could get thrown away. Like there's this one box of stuff. It just looks like a bunch of junk. You should probably just throw it away. And I go looking through the box. It's all my childhood photos.
Memories.
I'm not even joking. It's my childhood photo albums. And I was like, babe. This all makes so much sense now because your military ways, you're used to just throwing shit away.
My bad.
We just keep it moving. There's
They're childhood photos.
I don't
It's
keep
not
any.
digitalized.
My mom keeps everything.
That
I don't
is
keep
hilarious.
anything. I'm just
Oh my
like,
gosh.
keep it
Oh,
moving. So,
man.
but I'm grateful for it. I mean, maybe you're not so much grateful for it, but
This
I'm
is what Manny's grateful for, not Ian.
I am grateful for it because I feel more resilient. Like I really have moved through life, and I've never been sad of like the seasons. I'm just kind of like, and we grew up poor. Like my pool. It's awesome that we're getting a pool dug, but when I was a kid, my pool was a inflatable boat raft that my dad filled up on my balcony. Like we were 30 floors up in Germany, and he filled it with water.
Man.
That's it.
Aw.
A freaking inflatable
That's
raft
cute.
and that was our pool for like 6 years.
creative.
And you loved it.
Yeah, like that's why I'm like, I don't have. It's funny because I don't have like childhood trauma that I know of. Like I don't like look back in my life and think anything negative about it, even though it was crazy.
That's so cool.
I just think so much positive because I only remember how hard they tried, and I never felt poor. But yeah, that's me.
That's beautiful. I'd say for me, one of the things is I'm super grateful for, I had parents who were both like super active in my life, and they both did everything they could to fuel what I was passionate about. So like I remember at one point, like this was like 4th or 5th grade, tetherball was like a huge thing at my elementary school.
Yes.
And I'm so competitive. I'm just like, whatever it is that I want to do, I'm trying to win. Like I want to be the best. So at one point, my parents, they had my uncle who was like, he was like a contractor and stuff. So he came to our driveway, dug a hole, and my parents bought me a whole tetherball set.
Wow.
Just so I could be out there, and I'm just like practicing by myself.
That was big on the playground.
Get your butt whooped, you know, and I'm practicing and stuff. And then whatever it was, like whether it was in 6th grade when I went through this whole chess phase, you know, my parents bought me a chess set.
phase?
I did. And I was like,
Can you still play?
I could still play.
I know how to play chess.
I just learned this last year.
I'm pretty
guys.
good. So me and my dad used to play chess.
Really?
So it's when I was into basketball, which basketball was a huge thing for me, you know, like my parents would do everything they could to send me to a really good camp, you know, and like all these things. So anything that I found myself passionate about, my parents did everything they could to help me grow in that. And I'm
love
super thankful
that.
for that because that's like, I realized for me, that kind of support allowed me to blossom into just a young man who was like okay with like trying to go out and get a dub.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I
that's
love
huge for
that.
me.
I like that because like your parents were pastors as well growing up. Like a lot of pastors with kids growing up, their parents were like, if it's not church, if you're not trying to be a worship leader, I'm not getting you a
Right.
guitar. Like,
But
like your interests, it didn't have to be in the 4 walls of a church. And maybe it's small, like tetherball, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's small. It's very important. And I love
It was
that you
huge.
love
It was
No,
huge
no,
in
I
5th grade.
get it. I get it, man. I get it. But like there could be some parents, well, I know of a lot of pastor parents that wouldn't get their kids anything unless it was like something to do with like directly the Sunday service and building the church.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you
But I think that's
remember your killer tetherball move?
Yeah,
Like
what
your
was your-
closer
Yeah,
move?
well, I
game
knew
ender.
like it was kind of that thing, like, you know, when you arm wrestle somebody, you're arm wrestling like a little kid, and you know, you're like, I could crush this little kid, so I'm gonna give them the chance of like, oh, my arm's coming back, and then gotcha, you know. So I had a move like that in tetherball, where I knew once this ball was coming around, like they would hit this ball twice. And then I knew on the back when it would come, I would hit it at a certain angle. So when it came to their side, it would go way too high. And so
Man.
4 hits and then you're done.
Yeah, tetherball was my jam.
This is a very, like, we went on a different path here, but it got so competitive. Like, and I was super thankful for the block that I grew up on. On the block, we had about 15 kids, and we were all within 5 years of each other. So it was so dope. So anything all of us were into was laser tag or like playing hide and seek on the street or whatever. So when we played tetherball, we would have tetherball tournaments.
Yeah.
So we'd have like brackets and stuff. We'd be like, all right, well, I'm a 1 seed. You're a 15 seed. So,
No way.
So,
Wow.
And so we put little monies together and winners could get cashed out. And so, man.
How old were you?
Dude, that was 5th grade. So the oldest in our crew was like, he just became a freshman. So
Let's
we
go
were
gambling?
all within. Oh,
Yes.
It got serious. It got really
Do we need
serious.
to have a tetherball competition?
I love that.
Dude, I would love to play.
I was the kid with the. Yeah, I was the kid that.
Have
you'd
you ever
be
played
nice to.
tetherball? Did you guys do that in Australia?
Okay, Ange, first of all, yes, and we have electricity and internet, I promise. We did. I used to play with my brother's friends, like, a lot.
Okay.
Like, but handball was a big thing.
Did you
for
guys
us.
call it like tethy or something?
Ted, actually, just so you know. She said Teddy. No, handball. I mean, tetherball was a big thing at the beach. We'd take it like cricket and tetherball. You take like your little kit down.
Yeah.
And just summer days on the beach.
Bring
You
it back.
remember? You
Let's
remember?
bring it back. I haven't seen a tetherball in a long time. Let's do
I
it.
know. What if that was an Olympic sport?
It
Oh
should
my
be.
gosh.
Whoa, you just have these like ultra athletes just hitting this tetherball. Just
So
make the string
hard.
longer. So it's
You'll
like a
see
20-foot string.
you'll see the miles per
Be so
hour on the
intense.
bottom right hand, and you'll be like,
Right.
shoo, shoo,
That would
bruh.
be incredible, actually. There's so
Why
many
not?
sports like that need to be like an Olympic sport that aren't Olympic sports.
Why
Dreaming
not?
of such a
Cheerleading.
future.
Liz should put that as one of the questions.
Yeah.
What's not an Olympic sport, Liz? That's your next question, my love.
Man, we're gonna get into this. If you are looking at the title,
It's not tetherball.
It's not tetherball. It is. I missed a corporate church, but do I? And this is funny because I was having a conversation with somebody else recently before me and Obese talked about this, and he was like, that he missed church, and we were both trying to figure out what part of church did we miss. Not that church is crappy, but anybody who's listening to this knows that we've all been on a deconstruct, reconstruct cycle, and all of us has taken a slight detour from what typically people will call regular church attendance. And by detours, I don't remember the last time I went, but not in a negative way. For me, church has been redefined, so I haven't felt this, but I know a lot of people that have been on the deconstruction journey that is like, man, I miss the community of it or the this of it. And every time I talk to them, I'm always like, but you can totally get that outside of church. What is it that you're really missing? And I think, and I'm just going to throw it out there and then anybody could pick this up. I think what we miss is the security in feeling like we're doing the right thing. There's that low key underlying thing that if we're all going to church, then at least on the outside, everyone knows we're saved. And even more so, Jesus knows we're saved because he sees us in attendance.
Yes.
I feel like that's the low key, at least when I hear people talk and we pick through it all, it's that thing of like, man, I always felt safer because out here trying to figure out who Jesus is to us personally, no one's drawing your walls for you. No one's giving you a schedule when to get up and when to read. At least at church, when you're reading, when you're worshiping, everything's told to you. The community kind of lets you know what's too far, what's too not really what's too far for you, but what's too far according to this congregation, because all of them's different. So you kind of learn the culture of your building, and then that kind of dictates your life. and you just run in that little maze for a while.
I think it's also the sense of falling in line, like just knowing that you're not going against the grain, that you're with the flow of the salmon going down the river. You know what I mean? You're not the one going the opposite direction. So there's something in that as well. So it's everything that you're saying. I feel like I'm doing it right. I'm being told what to read, when to read it, all of those things. But it's also that sense of like you're with the flow, like all the cows going into the pasture, like you're right with them all, and you're not fighting through trying to be like, wait, I don't think we're going the right direction, guys. So I think it's a little
which
bit
is not inherently. I don't think we're saying this in a negative way, but if you were to ask yourself, is this what you miss? Like, I mean, only we can answer for ourselves. Like,
for me, that's definitely one thing of just being like, okay, I'm doing it right. Let me just, it's easy. You know,
that's what I was going to say, the easiness. I think for me, it's like ELYSE, who's 6 to 12 months behind this crew in general in life, in both big life decisions. I'm the newbie on the block again with like this new season. But I think for me, there's a few things I miss. Like there's, Ange kind of said it with that word. The word I keep getting is like easy. Going to, and again, like corporate Western big church. We used to call that in Sunday school, but like big church, adult church. I miss the fact that I didn't have to think about it a lot. I got told a lot and didn't have to fight for it myself. There is such a beauty I'm realizing in fighting, but I also realize my muscle, my Bible fighting muscle, whatever that is, isn't as strong as I thought it was, because it's been an exhausting season of being like, wrestling. What do I think? What do I really think about that? God, did you really say that? Or was that like a cool alliterated sermon that I heard on that Sunday with a really cool story about a man that was a soldier in 1925 and then he like rescued someone and they got married and everything was Christian. Like I got told so much growing up, but I have missed the ease of, and some of it was trust for sure. And did my trust get broken? And was I being a bit naive? Probably. And that's our Western society. We're very lazy in most areas in life. So of course that translated into corporate church. But for me, I've missed that, like, not knowing that, like, am I in the wrong? Like, am I even a Christian? Like, we did that podcast in season 1 that was like, WTF, are these guys even Christians?
Yeah.
First time in my life, you guys, I'm like, am I a Christian? Asking it of myself. And it's that, like, yes, I miss community, but what was community? So, because everything that I say I miss then comes to the question of, but what is that? Yes, I don't miss Growth Track. Yes, I miss like the discipleship, but was it discipleship? Yes, I miss the small groups. But did I, or am I romanticizing something because I feel now like I'm outside the flock and people question me now? I miss, and I don't know if I miss it or I'm realizing it, but like I miss the trust that, the borrowed trust that I have if I was connected to a trusted church. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I miss that because now it's like,
You missed the name tag.
yeah, I miss wow.
If you have a name tag, everybody feels like, oh, you're with them.
Yeah.
We trust you.
That cosign.
Yeah.
Cosign.
You know, it's like if you work for like, so when I get reimbursed through my job, whatever, there's 2 signatures that always appear on that check.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that check is good because those 2 signatures are on there. And
Right.
that's like a lot of times when you're a part of a church that's
Man,
known
that's
and
good.
got pastors, it's kind of like, yeah, you could cash that check.
Yeah.
Because look at those signatures.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you don't have those, there's almost this sort of like we don't know who you are, what you're about. We can only perceive. And so I do miss a little bit of that for sure. You know, now that I'm not doing as much speaking and traveling and stuff, it's I do miss that aspect. And a lot of that is because the church cosign isn't on my name anymore. You know what I'm saying? Even though I feel like at this point in my life, I got so many better things to talk about and say and preach than I did when I had any church behind me. And it's funny because I feel like that's always how it works out, right?
Yeah.
Is that not the journey of any prophet in the Bible that you look at?
Man.
You know, it's always these voices that are being raised out in the wilderness. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that I do miss about the church is the corporate gathering and singing songs together. worship for me has always like, even though I've always loved preaching, being in a really dope worship setting with other people has always been so magical to me. You could probably describe that on so many different levels. You could describe that on an energy level of just everyone being in this place of gratitude and unity.
Yes.
And the vibration in that room is like,
Come
I
through.
get the chills, you know,
Come
when we're
through.
singing these songs. And then these songs actually have power too, right? That's like most of the Bible is oral tradition, at least the Old Testament. It's all these stories have been passed down. And there is some sort of magic that comes along in telling of these stories. And so here we are kind of singing songs about these stories that have been told for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like that's magical that we get to be a part of something not just here and now, but like history past. All these other thousands of people, millions of people have come together to sing songs about the same thing. So it's funny because that's one thing that I do miss about a Sunday service. The last time I actually felt a magic like that was when I went to go see Kanye and Drake at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And there's 80,000 people and we're all singing Jesus Walks. And it was like such a like, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of when I was at like packed out conferences, you know?
That's good.
One thing I do miss too is I do miss seeing the moments where someone is on their last line or last leg and they come in and something that was said or an energy was in the room was exactly what they needed on that Sunday. That would kind of spark them into a new direction or to a new season of their life. That is really special to see because sometimes you don't necessarily see that in other settings.
Right.
You know? Because like for me, I don't really necessarily miss the preaching. I don't miss leading small groups necessarily because it's kind of, sometimes it feels like forced community for me. And I don't do very good at that. I'm kind of like, I want my friendships and who I'm connecting with, this should feel organic. Like this should feel like this is easy for us to talk about God right now. Not like we have to talk about God Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Bring the nachos, you know?
Bring the nachos.
So I don't miss all that because I'm like, there's so much good teaching podcasts, all of that available to you. But I do miss the magic of singing these amazing songs together. And I do miss the lifeline that it can be for people who, God knows, that was exactly what they needed for that time in their season in their life.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm listening to what you guys say is miss, and then I'm remembering Bobby saying, you know, did I miss it or am I romanticizing it? And I'm really feeling like everything you guys are saying are all very valid things, right? And then when I think about it,
I love it.
Is this where Manny tells us we were all wrong?
no, I
didn't
don't
even do mine yet.
I don't. Oh, baby, you have yours. I thought you did yours already because you were the first one. You were the
she
first
was
one.
just
I
adding
agreed
on.
with
Yeah.
what you said.
Okay.
and-
Manny thought
and
that
then-
was your answer.
And then we all went on. I was like, okay, cool. I'll wait for
Do you
my
have one?
turn.
Do
Manny
you have
was
one
like,
that you want to say?
Queen agreed with me. That was her answer.
Do you have one that you want to say?
Welcome to our marriage.
Yeah.
No. Don't throw
All
jabs.
ears, babe. What do you miss?
No, I think Brandon definitely touched on what
Yeah,
I was
co-sign.
going to say, that feeling of, you know, when you're singing the songs, and whether it's the singing of the songs or when the pastor is like striking a nerve, like tapping into something and you can feel the vibration in the room. Whatever is happening, it comes down to the vibration in the room. And when you're in church, it's like, oh, the Spirit is here, presence of God is here, and then like people are like tapping into that. So that's definitely something that I miss on a corporate level, because you can tap into that on your own in your meditation or on a nature walk or wherever. But something that I miss is just the nostalgia of the way things were. So like I follow certain people on Instagram that are still very much like deep into that world. And it's interesting because I'll see certain like videos of things and I'll get triggered and I'll be like, ugh, so glad I'm not in this anymore. And then I'll see almost the same exact type of video, a very similar video, but on a different day. And there's part of me that goes, oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing that I was like, ugh. And then I go, oh wow. So I feel like it's like the nostalgia. I remember what it was like being in that room when, you know, whoever was like praying and they're just like going back and forth and their eyes are closed and they're just like super into it. And then now, because they're super into it, now I'm super into it. And I'm like, oh, we're all super into it. So it's like, I miss the we're all super into it. And then at the same time, it's that feeling of like, what did you say earlier? Like, it has to be 6 p.m. Tuesday, blah, 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 whatever. It's that's like, but you're like showing me that this is the way to do it, but this is not the only way to do it. Like, all the things, so many thoughts get in my head, and it's like such a fight within myself. So I feel like it's the nostalgia of like where I used to be.
It's like, it was like a safety, right?
Yeah.
When
It comes back to the
before.
beginning of like feeling safe. Like, I'm doing it right. I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Because here's what I was gonna say. Not that everybody was wrong. I guess for me, at one point, I had to define what church was, right? Even corporate church, because we've heard it preached so many times. The church is not these walls; it's what's outside of these walls, right?
Good, so good.
But the irony in that is, since I stepped out of those walls, the amount of people that were in those walls that have reached out to me is like less than 2%. So I'm kind of like, okay, so then what is really, you know, what was I giving into? What was I all my time in those corporate settings, all my time in the freaking worship, all my time, all that shit was supposed to build this type of church relationship of like, oh yeah, we're in this together, we're in the fight together, and then you don't show up, and then there ain't nobody calling you, ain't nobody talking to you, there's no one checking in, and 9 times out of 10 the assumption is that you're backsliding or you've fallen away or whatever. And
we're
that
only
doesn't
in a fight together at 9, 11, and 1 o'clock.
well, and that doesn't
On Easter at 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. as well.
That doesn't even offend me. Like, I'm not even upset. I'm not even like one of those people like that are like, oh, I'm so mad at the church because no one ever called me. I don't. I'm so like independent that I don't really like, I have my team of people. But what it does, it caused me to question, what was I giving myself to if that very thing that I spent so much time in literally cuts me off the second I'm not there. So it's the same thing with, you know, sometimes I'll do the same thing about all my friends that are still in Christian music. And I'll be like, damn, if I was still in there, maybe I'd be way farther along in my music career, right? But then I remember, I don't really want that music career. I don't really want a music career. I'd really love to just phase out as soon as possible, you know, as far as needing to be relevant in all the ways that musicians need to be relevant. So I've already come to that in my heart. Like, I always say that I want to live like a rock star. I don't want to be a rock star. You know what I'm saying? So that's not the issue, because I recognize I want to create a new idea of what church is, at least for me. That's one in which you do get checked up on. Like, it's not based on anything that you're doing, or if you're coming to that, you know, those times, if you're, you know, whatever. It's just I don't want to say my old church. A church I know.
A friend's church that you went to.
It was a friend. But they low key, you know, when it comes to like sometimes help, like they really do keep track of them tithing records.
Oh yeah.
And that shit kind of feel weird to me. It feel real weird to me when it's like they got books on who's giving and who's not, so they can determine where to allocate funds, you know? And I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm just saying, like, I just don't know if what I gave everything to was not good or bad, because I love my old church, Faith Assembly God. Shout out Pastor Johnny. I love that. I wouldn't be anything without these people. What I realize is that it really is a season. I feel like, at some point after Bible college, God was like, all right, Abraham, go. Like, just start walking, dude. Go, Moses, go, just go. Yeah. Just start walking. And now it's a completely different, now you're not in a corporate setting, but you're the guy creating shit, like making new movements, new ways of stuff. And I don't know.
When you talk about people checking in on you from that world, I almost have like a love-hate relationship with that. Like if they were checking in to be like, yo, let's just hang out and do life and that's it. Yes, honey. But it's rarely ever that if you get a check-in.
Yeah.
It's a, hey, so how's your heart? Like,
I
on?
noticed.
Yeah,
Let's all go around and say our favorite one.
noticed.
You've been
Yeah, my heart lately.
You've been on my heart.
The amount of people.
Is everything okay? Like, I'm just concerned, you know, like, and I remember too when I first started my process and talking to a friend and being like, I'm just asking a lot of questions right now. And she was like, oh no. And I was like, oh. Then I said, oh no.
Okay, this conversation's done. Thank you. It's a real thing, isn't it? Part of me is like, I guess having gone through it lately, and for me, it's almost two parts, because there's like, what do I miss about the corporate church? I think like when you said that, Brandon, like that fully resonated with me of like that, oh, I do miss those moments like of being there. And I've been to different churches over the last like year or stuff, even just moving and that kind of thing. And there is something about corporate worship with people that you do love too. Like that kind of feeling of being in a room with people I love. And having said that though, I did so much research on like how people romanticize breakups and that kind of thing, and how so often people go back to whether it's abusive or just bad relationships, because once they break it off, what they remember isn't the real relationship, it's all the good stuff. And so then they're like, wait, I miss him so much. And you're like, oh, he hit you, like you forget that. And so they go back to these things because they were romanticizing it. I think I was doing that for a long time with my church experience, and so I was romanticizing it. But the problem was that I would go back to these services now, and I'm like, oh God.
And it would hit you again?
Oh God, you hit me again. Like, I have another bruise. But like, it's because I think, but then I think back to like the table at the place in the hills, that like William would be singing worship music, or like we'd be doing like R&B worship, like to other randoms.
SWV
or like,
worship.
Yeah, like remember all the old school throwback, everyone would have a different turn. Yeah. To me, that was some of the first experience of like, not Western cultured like corporate worship, if you will, and leaving and being like, why did that feel more fun? Like I kind of blame you guys, to be honest. Like I don't want you to feel
we ruined your life. You're welcome.
Yeah. Don't carry that, but maybe carry it, you know. So there's two parts. There's like the corporate church, and then there's the ministry side of things. So like having left like a 9-to-5 church, whatever. People would have said, and I'm starting to believe that I'm like, oh, I think maybe I'm having more an effect on helping people, specifically women, now than I was before. But there still is that, like, I miss for me, like, it's more like a safety thing. I think I miss the safety of having that. And I think I miss the hope of what I always wanted it to be. And even if I believe my own lies of like, this is the thing, I think I miss that, like it could still be that. And yeah, there'd be bad Sundays there, but those moments would like keep me holding, I guess. And I can't remember where I was going with this. So like just
the safety.
The safety.
Yeah.
But
no,
I think it's that, you know,
that for you.
I think everybody feels that it is a safe thing, man. It really is. Like, and everyone wants to feel safe. They want to feel secure in their walk. No, it's not. But I think that's why it's so attractive and appealing to a lot of people. And the idea of walking out on your own and figuring out if you do have questions, that's a lonely road, because the second you do, you're automatically branded as something that you're not. And that's scary, you know?
Well, sometimes it can be like the answer you can get the, oh no's. And then I've also found you can get pastors and people that are like, yeah, everyone has those questions. And they don't answer them. No one's going on the journey to answer them. But it's like, you're welcome here. And it's like, okay, but I would love some answers to my questions. Like, and even if you don't have them, is it okay that I go on this journey to find that out? So I think sometimes you can have also the lip service. It also isn't helpful, where people and pastors are like, no, your questions aren't too big for God. And you're like, I know that, thank you. But like, the reality of how that's walked out is they don't call you anymore. The reality of how that's walked out is the actions behind it. And that's what I was thinking, because I almost wasn't even mad when like people at the church like didn't call me anymore. I understand, like they're on their mission. Like when you're going somewhere, if someone doesn't like work or they don't keep up to your mission, like I understand it, because I not only have I like been in that before, but human nature is kind of like, if life seasons change, if things change, you might have your like core, very small, tight thing. But from a corporate perspective, you can't call something family when there's like 10,000 people there. Like you just can't, because 10,000 people, human capacity doesn't work. And so I wasn't even mad at that. It was more the mad at the promises of like, you can't please stop promising that, because you can't actually do that.
Yeah. You're not actually willing to step outside of the game and walk with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because most of my life, like the visuals have to do with different scenes in basketball, because I realize like
same.
my role is like,
sports.
I try and break down life lessons through a game and teach young men. So one of the things is, I remember last year was a summer league game, and we were playing at this like hot ass gym in Chatsworth where there was no AC. It was terrible. Like I was on the sideline just sweating through my white tee. It looked like a wet t-shirt contest over there on the bench. Shit. Anyways, and so I'm coaching the game. One of my kids ends up getting hurt, you know. So there's no one else to help him. His parents aren't there because a couple of them had carpooled over together. So he's on the sideline. So I don't have assistant coach at this point. So it's just me. So the game is continuing to go on. As much as I need to be giving instruction to the kids who were in the game, playing, trying to give them strategy and stuff like that, I realized that I'm the only person who could help this kid on the bench get hurt. And this gym didn't have a trainer. I'm telling you, this was a terrible gym. It was so hot, floor is black, slippery as hell, everything. So I end up having to go in the back. My team is playing without a coach in the meantime. And I'm trying to find some tape or ice, something to get my kid back in the game. So I end up helping him. Didn't find tape, found ice. I'm like, hey, you're not playing the rest of the game. Take care of him, yada, yada, yada. But I think about that moment, and I think about it would have been super easy, and it would have actually been like rational to continue to coach the game and be like, hey, I'm going to need you to kind of take care of yourself. Can someone else go and do it? But I'm like, I'm realized you're under my care, my tutelage here as one of my players. My responsibility is to take care of you, even if you're out of the game. And again, that's a lot. And I realize that that's very simplified understanding of kind of some pastors walking with people on their journey. But I think that is actually attainable. Like, I think that's actually doable, you know? Going back to the point of church feeling like a safety, right? Karl Marx, who was a 19th century philosopher, he said that religion is the opiate of the masses. Because he felt like what ends up happening is all these underprivileged people, disadvantaged people end up coming together, and they end up getting suppressed and kind of essentially dulled to sleep. But in a lot of ways, I think that is how the church dynamic works, right? Whether you want to consider it falling asleep to what's actually happening out in the real world, right? You talked about this earlier, Abraham. What God does to Abram is he says, hey, I want you to come out from your tent, look up in the sky, see the stars. Like, there's a much bigger world than the ceiling of your little tent with your little family. In a lot of ways, there's a much bigger world than just the ceiling of your nice church. There's a whole world out there, you know? And so what ends up happening is I think a lot of people kind of fall asleep. And another way that I would look at it is people get suppressed. They're saying, hey, you don't actually have the freedom to be everything that you think you can be and who God made you to be. We need you to be this for this church. So a lot of what happens is a lot of people end up having to go through this painful process of making themselves smaller. And once you make yourself smaller, you don't really like who you become. And when you don't like who you become, that's not a good place to be, to be living.
And it's too late. You're already there. Like, and that's when you recognize it, when you're like, oh.
And you're kind of dead already. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that is one thing that I do not miss.
Right.
Is because when I was working for a church, and again, if you go back to the first season, you can, like, if you go through the seasons and you've been following, you've kind of seen the trajectory of the things that I'm talking about. When I first came on, there was still a little bit of like, oh, well, I can't really throw punches if I want to. Right. Not at particular people, just in general, like ideas. And now I'm like, there isn't somebody calling me like, hey, Brandon. I
listened to your podcast.
Yeah, we listened to that episode. Hey, buddy, we're going to need to talk.
Yeah. When did those calls stop? Because you were getting them at the start.
I was getting them at the start. It stopped when...
Was there an episode?
I just stopped answering it. And it stopped also when I stopped caring and putting so much weight to what they had to say about what I had to say.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, I am living my life and I have to own my own words.
Wow.
And I'm the only one who knows my journey, really. So at the end of the day, like, I could really care less what you have to say, because I know at the end of the day, my heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
And so I think with that is a part I do not miss, is a lot of that. And again, this isn't in every space, but most people, actually, that's probably exaggeration. A lot of people would probably argue that their mentor or their spiritual father or mother or whoever it is that they want their discipleship person, okay? A lot of that is a form of control. It is not for your best interest. It is to make you into something they want you to be. And I think that is also a problem with the Western church in general.
Wow.
Do you think it's problematic because this is something that I feel, and maybe it's because before I came into the church, I was an absolute rebel, hated authority. I didn't like anything. So when I came into this thing, sure, they had people over me, but I never really saw anyone like over me in that way.
Is your story telling that girlfriend to?
Yeah, like I don't really let people control me, because it's always been a thing where like I'll listen, but I don't let you control me. I think I'm too smart for that. So, do you think at some point, because of the safety, because of the feeling like we kind of give in to this idea of like, oh, it's a family, it's a this, they are my mentor, they are my spiritual father. Do you think at some point we give them the power, and then when they take it and use it, we get mad at them, as opposed to being like, I kind of gave that shit away. Like, I let you do this to me, as opposed to you did this to me. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you think?
Brandon, you're up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just asking, because
okay. To me, it's like the opposite of what you're saying is also true. So it's not an either and kind of answer. I feel like it's both.
They're all, yeah.
In some situations, the church space acts very cultish. Where
I've listened to a couple of podcasts now that I'm like, oh god, about cults. That I'm like,
at some point, you're kind of coerced. At the end of the day, you do actually end up having to give the keys to your car for someone else to drive. So whether that's done willingly or whether that's done in a very deceptive way, where you're kind of going through and following along, and then you're not even realizing what's really happening till it happens. So that's kind of would be, I feel like, my both and. There's some people that are like, I will do anything. I will be surrender. I will submit. Like,
well, yeah, because that's the terminology. Like you're. It feels so noble to submit, to be under leadership. You know, we've heard it before. What's your covering? What's your whatever? Even though I still haven't figured out what part of that
it's right here, guys.
is in the Bible. But like, you know, and you know, I'm not saying I know the answer. I know the answer for myself, and it's because I hold myself to this accountability of like, if they get you because you didn't do what you needed to do to not get got, type of thing, you know, because they have the same book you got. So if they get me, it's because somehow or some way I stopped efforting trying to understand this book and where my place was in this thing. So that, and, you know, if they do get me, you know, because I feel like I've been got before, but I write it off like that they're whether they did everything right or not, I kind of write it off like they were at least trying to do the right thing by me in my life. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the right answer to that is. Like, how much of it is us, them? Because I always get really weary, especially when people are listening to us talk, that I know we're not like trying to speak negatively of these institutions. Because obviously if you're in one or if you're thinking of going to one, do it. I've felt like what's allowed me or helped me a lot is just to recognize seasons. At one point, these things served us.
Totally.
In whatever way, shape, or form that was. And that it's okay when it stops being of service, me to them and them to me. And then you just keep it moving without any kind of like, ugh. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's been important for me as well to recognize the difference between like the church that God created and that God commissioned, and the church experiences I've had too. I think that's been a huge part of like me not getting bitter at the same time, is that like I haven't found my fit yet again. Well, I don't know, again, who knows? But I'm still looking. I still have hope. I still go into different church experiences like, hey, I'm seeking that like corporate worship moment today. But
what do you mean you haven't found your fit?
Well, I haven't like found that same, that's why I laughed after I said it, because like, what is that even? But like where I fit before, that safety, but that was also like, we've just deconstructed that whole thing. Thanks guys. But the like, would I fit somewhere now? I don't know, but I'm still like looking for I still believe in like a big community, like a big, like I'd still love if I found somewhere that felt good.
I don't understand why you're saying if.
What do you mean?
You're literally currently leading a bunch of women on a daily basis, and you're asking that you want to find the space when you've literally created the space. The only thing is that you're not recognizing that the leadership that you are under, you are now them.
Right.
And you're still trying to find a smaller space, to B's point. Just like with B, he's now leading kids that are going to go out and possibly become the next superstars. And he's pouring into their life. Like, okay, you're not getting the pat on the back from the church, but the stuff that y'all are doing is church.
Well, I guess, and let me ask you, like, when did you stop? Like, when did you start realizing, like, okay, this is the thing that I was looking for?
Yeah, I could tell in the way that my heart felt. You know, it's funny because I think, like, you realize, man, I feel fulfilled. Like, that feeling of fulfillment in my heart is kind of been one of the things that I always feel like I have this belief that when I'm doing things that God is wanting me to do, not only is it going to be impactful in people's life and it's going to make a difference, but it's also going to feel fulfilling. My heart's going to feel full. And I realized in a lot of ways, I'm like, man, I kept wanting more. I kept wanting more. I kept wanting more. And then all of a sudden COVID happens. And then I really found my rhythm. And I was like, oh man, like I'm laying on my bed at night and being like, I can't wait for tomorrow. Like I'm looking at my schedule and I'm like, hey, who are we pouring into tomorrow? Okay,
wow.
Awesome, man. It's going to be great. And that feeling where I was like, oh, this is where God wants me to be. And if this is where God wants me to be, there isn't anywhere else that I'm going to find this sort of feeling in my heart.
And the only difference I think is that now it's just you're patting yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Because there isn't the church to be like,
yeah,
good sermon, brother.
You're on the right track.
Way to disciple that young kid
Yeah.
where nobody was watching.
Yeah.
You're really making an impact. Nobody's there to say that. You have to get in your car and be like, I affected a dude today.
The other thing too is I think that not only am I not getting the pat on the back, but I think I'm also at a place where I don't need the pat on the back. Not out of like affirmation, but more of like, I don't need my ego stroked as much no more.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think like last 2 years really, I haven't been that active on social media, but last year I really was not active at all. And it was like one of the best things for me. Like I actually really needed to unplug, you know, and now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, how do I get more on here? You know, but then I'm like, I just feel so like I don't need to post on here.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to tell all the cool things I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? But mostly because of last year and how deep it went for me, it was like my ego just got like killed. It's probably the deepest place that it was. So I don't need the affirmation because I already know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird journey with that kind of stuff. Understanding.
Were you gonna say something?
No, it's I think I was genuinely just wondering, because I think when I say my fit, when you said that before about that corporate, those worship moments, I'm like, I still like, that's the stuff that I miss. When I say that, I don't mean I'm looking to go back on a staff somewhere. Trust me, I am not, for the record, looking to go back on a church staff anytime soon. But I still look for that. I still hold out hope for those moments of like corporate worship. And I know it looks different. I know it's different. I think those are the things that I still and changing in my mind, like intentionally, the difference between I think what God set the church up to be and what my experiences have been, and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, Don't throw any babies out with bathwater. It's super unsafe.
Terrible idea.
Bad idea. But yeah, just like still being able to come in and appreciate it and like embrace it for what that is.
You know what I've been trying to do more instead of that? I've been really trying to figure out, what does it mean to live a life of worship? That sounds hella churchy. But seriously.
That's real, yeah.
But seriously, like, I remember I would get so angry when I was in the Christian industry doing music. I hated, and still to this day, I hate that they have a genre called worship music. It's the most deceitful bullshit genre in the world, because what you've done, and I've experienced this, what you've done is you segmented a portion of someone's expression based on whether they can sing or not, and have deemed it worship music.
Wow.
Then you got little rappers like me, like Lecrae, like, you know, and like all these little rapper kids. We can't sing, we can't anything. So we ain't coming to your church on Sunday mornings. I got to rap at my church one Sunday out of the 14 years I went there. You know what they made me do? Wear fucking robes. I had to wear choir robes. I had
Like a
to
Sister
wear
Act 2 situation, huh?
pink choir robes.
Pink.
Just so that we could be somewhat acceptable on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
They always left us for like, oh, you're the youth group. You're the you know, you on the Wednesday nights. And it made me so angry, because I'm like, what you're doing is, this whole culture, our Western culture, thinks that worship music is a specific thing, as opposed to thinking worship music is any music that comes from the heart of a worshiper. And that worshiper can worship in any freaking way. And that has, I think, ruined it, because now we're trying to fit into, we're trying to chase that magic, as opposed to being like the gardener who's singing his little worship music in his head when he's listening to his iPod. He's fully as magnificent as that 30-piece choir. So like in my life, I'm trying to be like, okay, how do I like live this thing? Like, what does it look like to live it, so that I feel like I'm consistently engaging in this worship and not chasing that 30 minutes that felt like I was doing something, and then the rest of my life wasn't worshipful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I think even to define what that, because I actually agree with what you're saying, but I think the thing that I'm thinking about is, when I'm talking about the corporate magic moments, it is that feeling of connectedness with other people.
Yeah.
Because you can have the same sort of worship, level of worship, depth of worship by yourself, right? Because that's coming from the heart. But there is a certain energy, like when you were vibing with your friends, and again, doesn't even have to sing worship songs. Like the other night, Maddie and I were in the car together, and I got my like 2000s playlist.
And that'll bring the
man.
spirit immediately.
And we were just like singing our hearts out in the car, and there was a magic in that moment.
Yeah.
Because one, I love singing. Like I absolutely, like every single day, I'm singing all the time. And to have that with other people, it's just like, that is something you can't do by yourself.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then, for all of you. We've all had opportunity to step into that moment. What's the first emotion you felt?
What?
What do you mean?
So we've all, in the last 2 or 3 years, have at least once stepped into a corporate worship moment.
I thought you were talking about the
What was
2000s
the
playlist.
initial feeling?
Oh, I know mine exactly. This was back at Castlewoods, and I was craving that worship moment. And there was a worship night at a church in Pasadena that I used to attend, and it was a music artist from Bethel was going to be there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go. Like,
Bang it.
this is going to be good. Like, I've been craving this type of worship moment. And I remember being there in this auditorium with all these people, and everybody's like singing. And then they were like encouraging the crowd to like roar like a lion. And like everybody's roaring like a lion. And I was like, what am I doing here? This is not what I wanted. This is not what I expected. This is just weird. And I'm looking at everybody. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go home now. This is not it. But that was what happened when I'm craving this worship moment. I went and I got it, and I was like, oh, this is what we look like. Never mind. I forgot. I'll just do it
so
at
many
home.
questions. How did they ask you to roll like a lion? Was everyone
Everyone
was it
was just
growling?
When was the last time that you got into a corporate experience like that, and how did it feel?
It's been a few weeks for me. I mean, mine's obviously more recent. I think I get a general overtone of anxiety. I feel a bit anxious, and it is hard for me to to kind of let go of that. I have also been in other experiences this year where it was great and I stepped in it, and it's just like now I walk in and I'm like a little bit like, I really want to just walk in and have a corporate moment without anyone caring like who anyone is or if I know anyone there or whatever. I just think like I can really get in my own head and overthink a lot of things. And so I think that can stop me a lot of the time. But yeah, anxiety or just numb as well. I've had those experiences where I walk in, I'm just really numb. And then I feel bad because I'm like, oh my God, I'm not a Christian anymore because otherwise I'd be feeling this. I'd be roaring like a lion. And so like, I think those would be like those three, anxiety, numb, or like,
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel it. It's great.
What about you?
The last corporate worship setting that I was in was just before Thanksgiving break. So it's either early November, late October. And a friend of mine was leading worship, and he did an amazing job, and I loved it. And it was like just as magical as I hoped it'd be. But the interesting, magical thing about it was the old church that I was a part of, everyone in the room is like super into it. You know, like you could just feel it. Like we're all on the same page here. This is beautiful. You know, people here were coming out of very like kind of traumatic experiences, or it's their first time at church.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of like
Overthinking
oh,
and numb
this-
as well.
This is nice, you know?
Yeah.
So a couple people were like here, but at least the section that I was in, we were all with it. And it felt awesome. Like
Yeah.
I just felt like this is what I missed.
Yeah.
And if this is all that I got on a Sunday experience, I'm cool. Like I don't even need a, and again, it's not that I'm opposed to preaching.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm constantly feeding myself throughout the week.
Yeah.
So I'm not waiting for a Sunday
Yeah.
buffet.
Yeah.
Like I'm eating good the entire week. You know what I'm saying? So,
That's good.
so yeah,
think-
so it was good for me. Like it was really good.
I think the last time I went was to Willie Matt's church.
Yeah.
That was the last time. To his worship thing.
You
I-
went?
Yeah. Remember that first time? Remember I told you I texted you? Immediately I got there, I had to use the bathroom. Like
Oh yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
Potty break.
Potty
I
break.
did enjoy that experience as well. When I went with you went without me and I went without you. And I do remember like the music was amazing because of course, I mean they have like professional like music artists like
their band is banging.
Band is banging. And I remember feeling like this is a church where, you know how we say like come as you are, like this is the only church I've ever experienced that's actually come as you are. Like everybody is like gay or transgender or just like all the different colors, people wearing whatever they want, like just it was a whole smorgasbord of people. It was a buffet of people, all different types of people, and everybody was there feeling accepted. And then you tap into all these people here feel safe, and we're all singing these like worship songs, and that struck a chord with me. And I was like, oh, I love this right now. I love that all these people feel safe and are singing this old gospel song, you know, and like it was really cool. It was a good experience.
I liked it. I felt a little out of practice, but
Practice. How do I do this again?
yeah, like I felt for sure out of practice, but
Wait,
but again, it's like my
hands
whole
don't go out here.
Something. This doesn't feel like the right
yeah, all of that felt really weird, you know, the hand position, the, you know, everything, because again, I felt like I was trying to fit into my prom suit. Like I was trying to go back into that thing and trying to look good in my prom suit. And even the way I worshiped, it was like, oh man, it's different now. It's different, even from where it's coming from. And again, it just made me go into my head, and I just started more thinking like, is your life a life of worship? Like, is your life it? Yeah, I think I'm still answering that question, you know, because I used to be able to have those morning time worship crying sessions. Now I live with people. I've always lived with people, so I can't do that. I have my time from the car to when I get to the gym that I do my thing. But I don't know. I think this is a very interesting topic to talk about. I know we're getting out on time, but we'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this. You know, what do you miss about corporate church? Does it feel, that thing you miss, does it feel real? Or like Bo B said, is it a romanticized idea? Or is it something genuine, like B said, where there's a tangible energy that is missed that can only be had when we get in the corporate setting? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Also, what are your thoughts on tetherball? Like, just
should it be an Olympic sport?
What are the other sports that aren't Olympic
Okay,
sports?
I will say this
not
here is
be
by
an
far
ex-
one of the most underrated sports. By far.
That was the most serious thing Bia said this entire
By
conversation.
far.
Should you or should you not tether
Should
yourself?
you or should you not introduce your
Teddy.
kids
Or
immediately?
Australian. Tebby.
yeah.
We love you guys, man. Hey, subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. And you know what really means a lot to us? If you actually share these episodes, because that does something to the old algorithm. And if you want to join on a deeper level, patreon.com/NATRT. And you guys can join the family. We have monthly VIP Zoom sessions that are always amazing. And we give you extra content that is not available anywhere else. So we love you guys. And as we always say, we pray you find a seat at the table. But if you don't, you are always welcome at ours. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.